Black Berea podcast, season 5, episode 9.
Woo.
Episode about the Mandem. How's everyone doing?
Yeah, good man, we back.
Yeah, not bad.
We're back in the studio.
Back
Shout out
in the
Dapper,
studio.
bringing us back in the studio. Appreciate you so much.
Do you know last time we were in the studio, Ali was here,
That's
and
actually
then
scary.
we're back, and Ali's back here.
See, what
So
does that mean?
you ain't done it. Last episode was my one.
No,
So we've done 2 episodes, but
Last
it's
two
been
we
like
did
online.
Okay.
Yeah,
Whereas we're actually back in the studio, like face to face.
See your boats.
Yeah. And we're joined with Ali here, A-Star Music, Brat. Thank you so much for being back with us. We had to bring you back, especially because the topic, I think, have some solid, powerful men.
We're a bit disappointed because Ali said that you can't rap anymore. Like he's lost his ability to rap.
He didn't say
I
that.
said I forgot all my lyrics.
That's real psychology though.
Okay.
I tried it.
You might have to prove it.
And we've got Louis here as well. I feel like Louis was here episode 6, episode 5.
Yeah.
6 or 7.
It was the Ox BB episode.
Is that what it was? Oh, yeah, it
Ox
was.
BB
Yeah,
episode.
yeah,
I remember
yeah.
when you guys were talking about Chat TBT. But yeah, welcome back, guys. How are you both doing?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah?
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How you
thanks for
doing?
having me back. Good man, good. Mary told me a different time, so I came late.
I said 7:30 / This is the earliest I've ever recorded.
If you told me
Black
7:30/8, I'm looking at 8
I'm assuming
o'clock.
8. Yeah, my bad. I forgot to confirm. My bad. Femi, how are you?
I'm right, man. I'm an Essex boy now, innit? So you Londoners, I don't even have to relate to you anymore.
Welcome.
I don't. Even, I'm Towie. I'm Towie.
Towie
guys.
That's
living.
disgusting.
I'm
You call
Towie.
yourself
Don't
Towie.
you? Huh? Yeah,
That's
I'm
actually
Towie.
disgusting.
Femi Essex.
You're a clown.
I've never-
How's your new ends?
I've never actually
You
watched
miss
Towie.
Newham, innit? Don't lie, you miss
I
Newham.
don't. I definitely don't miss
You
Newham.
don't miss Newham.
I miss London. I don't miss Newham. Sorry, Newham lot.
Where in Essex are you?
Basildon.
What road?
I must have said what road.
I think it was gonna say, you know.
My postcode is no. Shame. It's in Basildon. I'll tell you if you want to know. I'll tell you after. I
I'll
don't.
tell you after.
Don't need these man knowing where I live.
I'm just saying, people with money move to Basildon, so
Who is it?
Ooh.
Is it? Yeah. I don't know how I got there. Then.
podcast is doing well, man.
So you don't know how you got there. That is so funny.
Nah, Basildon's good, man. I like it.
Yeah?
It's right. Yeah. Better black people. I'm surprised. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was surprised. Like,
And Londoners are moving out to.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like it's Kent and Essex, and
Yeah.
Londoners are just going.
Cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's nice.
I just can't wait
Good
to see
transport.
Mary's house whenever she buys a
I'm
house.
still there. I'm living with my parents. I don't think. you know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm living
We're
with
just
my
waiting.
parents.
We're just
Still
waiting to
poor.
mansion.
No, just trying to stack up the
After
keys
I heard
day
where you
by
work.
day.
After I heard.
I
where
don't
you
work anywhere,
Oh,
so.
okay. I was gonna say.
Hey, that was my fault.
I was gonna say it on the podcast.
Anyway,
Anyway,
so
Yeah.
last episode we spoke about, I think the title was Barbie and Christian misogyny. So we spoke a little bit about womanhood, misogyny, etc. And we thought, wouldn't it be good to have, flip it on its head and do an episode for the Mandem. So guys, this is a safe space. Apparently, men don't have a lot of places to talk amongst themselves. So just pretend I'm not
Yeah,
here.
there's too many places.
Pretend I'm not here. So yeah, this will be an episode about the Mandem. So hopefully we'll talk about everything manhood, masculinity, and I think it'll be very, very useful for our listeners and for me especially too. But it was interesting because today I was actually reading about Andrew Tate, who's I think he's in trial in Romania. I think it's along the lines of like organized crime and human trafficking. And the prosecution has a lot of evidence. And I was just thinking about the fact that Andrew Tate has a massive following. I was reading just earlier in the year around a lot of men engage with a lot of content that Andrew Tate does around, like, I think it's got a Hustlers
University. Yeah.
course, which Louis enrolled in.
Yeah.
You've got fitness, talks about like relationships, gym stuff as well, I've heard. And I was thinking about Kevin Samuels. There was a podcast today, what was it? Fresh and Fit podcast that was demonetized. And apparently the Red Pill community, which I've just learned what that is, I think Femi can explain. But like all these different figures, Jordan Peterson, all these guys are talking about male self-improvement. Like, why do you think they have such a pull on men in 2023 generally? What do you guys think?
I think a lot of these videos are targeted to men's insecurities. I'm not gonna lie, my wife said that today. I don't take the credit for that.
Help me.
Your wife's getting more famous than you, to be fair.
I asked her the question, she said that. So
No, okay.
yeah, the wisdom comes from my wife, not me. But I was like, it's true. Like, it targets men's insecurities, and a lot of them find a safe space in that and just hold on to it. It just completely diminishes respect for women, respect for women's rights as well, and it just puffs up the man's ego, and yeah, I think it's nonsense, man. And it's been like just flooding our timelines of recent, flooding, and it's just getting more frustrating. It's just, yeah, it's not nice to see. You know what I'm saying? Especially when we're in a world where men have done a lot of evil to women, vice versa, obviously. But when we're in a place, especially as believers, I think when we look at things like this, it's like, okay, how do I approach this as a man? Also, how do I approach this as a believer? Of course, they're gonna have some things that you might agree with, but the rest is just coated in evil, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I completely agree about the insecurity part, because I was going to say it stems from a lot of lack of identity, I think. I think, especially in modern times, I think there's been such blurred lines in terms of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, that a portion of, I guess on both sides, I can't speak for the on the womanhood side, but on the male side at least, you can get lost in that because you don't know what specifically it means to be a man anymore because the lines are so blurred. We're being told that, well, of course, we all believe that we're equal, but we're also not just equal, but we are the same. And there's no difference between male and women, and there's no such thing as gender roles, and, well, there's no such thing as gender in some cases. And I think what you'll get with that is people searching for identity in some kind of way. So despite the fact that we're being told and we're being fed that, there's no difference, we're all the same, people are always going to look for identity, because I think in our nature is to look for some kind of form of identity. So when this kind of red pill movement became popularized, it gives a certain demographic of people a chance to actually find identity in something that seems meaningful, that seems beneficial. And the dangerous part of it is kind of what Ali alluded to just now, was some parts of it you can relate to, or even true objectively. You can say some parts of it are objectively true. And if you cling on to the fact that you hear some truths, it's easy then to slip in many falsehoods and many lies and many other things. And that's what we can talk about in terms of misogyny and mistreatment of women. And not even just mistreatment of women, just glamorizing things like having multiple partners, for example, or
Brother Polite.
Or
Do you know about him?
I do actually. Or even having loads of money.
Yeah.
Like, or just the constant search for money. Objectively, someone might look at that and say, that's not that bad to want lots of money. Or even to have multiple partners. In 2023, that's not even a stigma anymore, like to have multiple partners. So if you latch onto those, I guess, criteria of success, then if someone's out here preaching that and saying, look, follow me and you're going to get money, you're going to get girls, you're going to get this. Yeah, you're going to latch onto everything. And then, you're going to slip in some other more negative, more harmful things in with that. So to answer the question, I think it's attractive for a lot of people, especially for people that are searching for identity. Am I echoing a little bit, or was it just me? Or was everyone echoing?
No.
Okay.
I think just to go off what you're saying, I think the annoying thing is the part truth that comes in that. And I think about people like Umar Johnson, Dr. Umar Johnson. He's a great speaker.
Very good.
So he stands for some great things when it comes to Africans identifying themselves, especially in America. And some of the things you're like, yes, but then it's like what is coated around, especially when it comes against obviously Christianity and all that stuff. It's like, you know what I'm saying? I wish you got it right. Do you know what I'm saying? And with a lot of these guys, some of the things they say is that it's true in regards to sometimes maybe gender roles when they're not kind of enforcing it. But the frustrating thing is the part truth, but not all truth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's funny because, like you guys have mentioned, when it comes to the likes of Andrew Tate, the likes of Kevin Samuels, they all...
Rest in peace, by the way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, rest in peace. They all speak to something that men want, which is obviously money, sex, and power. Those three things, mainly. That's mainly what they talk about. That's all under that umbrella. But at the same time, so for example, with Andrew Tate, there's some things that he says where I'm like, okay, he's right. Men should probably work harder. There's a lot of lazy men out there. Men are probably weak in some way, shape, or form. We need to be more masculine in certain areas, but it's the end. So it's a means to a different end, which is like, for example, it leads to like oppression of women in some way, shape, or form, misogyny, violence, all of that stuff. So I think yeah, like we all want money. Young people all want women. Young people all want some sense of power. And then on top of that, there's a sense where they feel there's oppression by the quote unquote the Matrix. So you will hear Andrew Tate, for example, speak about the Matrix all the time. The Matrix for you, the Matrix media, the Matrix this and that, the 9-to-5s, all of that stuff. So automatically, someone's getting out of bed feeling like they're under some sort of oppression. So it's I need to go for what I want, but I can't let this umbrella of the Matrix hold me down. I agree with you. I think it's nonsense. I think a lot of it is nonsense.
I think one of the most powerful points about the Matrix and how I think people in general definitely gather a lot easier around a common like villain. Like and whether the villain is the Matrix or oppression or misogyny. I'm not even saying that these things aren't like villains or like, sorry to use a football example, but like Man United fans, like the villain at the moment are the Glazers. The Glazers are the people that own Manchester United. Sorry for non-football. I'm not going to go into like the details behind it. But one thing that unifies a lot of United fans, for example, is the villain is the Glazers. Even though we have so much difference in opinion and so many other things, it's easy to bring us together to say, oh, we all want the Glazers to go, right?
Common enemy.
That's the one. Common enemies. And I think, if you can speak about like things like the Matrix, for example, or the Man, or all these people that try, it's easier to gather people and easier to get people to listen to what you have to say because you can all agree on this common enemy. And a lot of times there isn't an enemy.
So I've been thinking about, I remember like the first time I heard the term like men are trash. And I think since then...
I've never heard that before.
I think since then there's been, like, I remember hearing a joke about, men shouldn't even have podcasts and there should be, like, divestment
they're
around,
getting
like,
onto the men with podcasts, bro.
after, the CIA put, like, crack in the hood, then you put, like, podcast equipment.
I didn't know where you're going with that.
Ruin the family and stuff, ruin society. And I think there's this whole sense that, everything is going so well and then men come and they just destroy everything. And even in just modern, like maybe not modern media, but like just in social media, it feels like there's like this growing sense that men are just not it. Yeah, men are trash. We don't want men around. Men just leave us alone type thing. If men were not alive, it would just be perfect world. And like, how does that affect your psyche? Like, how do you kind of relate when you hear stuff like that? Because I think it does sometimes creep into like Christian thought as well, actually.
Yeah.
So how do you guys relate to when you hear something?
And you have people with wives that actually say that as well. And you got your husband right next to you.
Like, men are trash. And it's like, raw.
It's like, babe, do you want a drink? Men are trash.
Men are trash.
But she meant systemically. It doesn't mean her own husband. She means the system.
They should tweet that. If you're going to say men are trash, put in bracket, except my husband, my brother, dad, and
uncle,
people that... uncle. Say that. Because we're going to think you just mean everyone.
Just put some at the front.
Yeah, some.
Some are fair enough.
The men I have encountered.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, how do you...
We are all sinners, saved by grace. How does it make you feel?
It feels like in recent thought as well. I don't remember hearing this when I was growing up. Or like 10 years ago. I feel like in the last couple of years is when there's that growing sentiment that,
Yeah,
really
sometimes I find it funny. Because obviously not all men are trash. And what is trash? Like, what do you even mean by that? People have different, I guess, like barometers in terms of what would equal a trash man. Undateable, filthy fellas. So people have different barometers of what a trash man is. Like, for example, a few years ago, it would be someone that is just unfaithful or, treat women like rubbish. 2023, it could just be you said something slightly that could be perceived to be transphobic or homophobic, or you don't know. What was the one I heard the other day? You go to Asda and your wife has to tell you what to buy. That makes you like trash. Like, you should know what to buy. Like, how can you not know what to buy?
It's partnered with the ick list as well.
Oh yeah,
it's all rolled up in one. And then every day there's just one thing.
Someone said, oh, it's an ick for a guy to wear like a rucksack. I wear rucksacks all the time.
You're ick then.
Yeah, man.
I heard it was an ick for a man to run for the bus.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I said,
I saw last week it's an ick for a man to not be able to do 10 push-ups.
It is though.
This is so hard.
I just passed. I just passed that. I'm alright. I'm not on the ick list. I can do about 12.
guys, if you're listening to this podcast and you can't do 10 press-ups, just practice. Just do it. Do a few a day. You'll get
sounds
there.
very toxic.
You know what is, Mary, though? I think the more this world is becoming more unloving and unforgiving alongside things like cancel culture, the more these things are going to keep rising, because it's like you cannot make a false move and it be captured on social media, otherwise you're finished.
Yeah.
And I think the more people's thoughts are being publicized online, is the more we're going to get things like this. It's not just all that. I think it all comes together with things like cancel culture and all that kind of stuff. It's more people's mistakes being publicized and being seen on social media. Unfortunately, I think it's got a lot to do with that. Because men, in the eyes of some women who say that, men have been trashed for centuries. Yeah. This is not new. Yeah. It's just now that things are more publicized and things are more, that's a great goal. Things are more publicized, and that's why I think it is what it is like that now. Yeah.
So growing up, like, how was your view of manhood formed versus like, how are you forming it now?
Good question. Louis?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, so first of all, the word manhood, I've probably never heard that word until like my mid-20s, honestly. Yeah. How would I answer that? I think growing up, I would just think to grow up and be a man would be to just take care of your family. That was my first thing. Take care of your family, put food on the table.
How young were you? Like, what was like the earliest time you thought that's what a man is?
Maybe it was like 5, 6.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. If I was eating well, my dad was being a man. He was putting food on the table. So yeah, I think that was that would be the definition. If you would ask me at the age of 10, what is a man? I'd say, a man's someone who has a family, brings home the bread, that kind of thing. Versus now, because there's manhood in terms of being an adult, and then there's a manhood in terms of me being a Christian now. And obviously now, when I look at manhood, I look at Jesus being the perfect, complete example of manhood. Being able to, so being able to obviously take off the throne that he was sitting on, come down to earth, stare sin in the face, deal with sin in the way that he did, and possess the characteristics that he possessed here on earth. For me, he's the perfect example of what it means to be a man. So yeah, I guess from there to now, that's kind of where that's the definition of true manhood for me. You know, Jesus absolutely, completely and wholly exemplifies manhood.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I would probably say, early would be just, the men in my life. So my dad, thankfully I had my dad in my life, still have my dad in my life. So just seeing whatever he did. I don't think I gave it too much thought because you don't think about those things too much when you're too young, right? It's only a little bit later where I look back and I say, oh, actually, I think men are supposed to be like this because this is what my dad did, or this is what the uncles in my life. Even like church and stuff, because I had my dad, and then the church I went to had a lot of like men that were in the home. I've realised afterwards that that's not the norm for a lot of people. I didn't realise that. It's actually hilarious because thinking about it now, my dad used to tell me that, I don't know if it was even right for him to tell me that, but he used to always say, Femi, you're lucky that I'm here in your life. My dad wasn't here to do the things that I'm doing. And he wasn't saying it in like a arrogant or gloating way, but he was just trying to say, like, don't take it for granted. And like, I'm trying to show you, like, not everyone has this. And when you're young, you don't know that much. Other than a few friends that didn't have their parents around, their dad around, I grew up in an environment where a lot of dads were. There still weren't, that wasn't, but majority, because of my church environment where there happened to be a lot, that's what I saw. So I saw like uncles, or people I would call uncle anyway, around. So I would just look at them and say, oh yeah, that's what you're supposed to be. Kind of like what Louis said, have a family, go to work, bring home the bacon. But I don't think I gave it that much, or I didn't think about how much that affected my view of manhood until I became a man. And I thought, oh, why do I think like that? Oh, maybe it's because blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of it stemmed. Again, just tapping onto what Louis said as well, in terms of the example we have in Christ. But also like Christian brothers as well, Christian leaders as well, seeing how they live their life has played an impact on me like throughout. That's what I would say.
My approach, I think, was different. I grew up in what you call ends. So in a single parent home. My dad went to jail when I was 2 years old. So for a short part of my childhood, he wasn't around at all. But when he came out, I'd see him once in a while. But because it was a single parent home, it was just, it's not the same as having your dad in the actual house.
Yeah.
So I grew up looking at guys outside. So my guys on, in my area or their dads or whatever. And the norm for manhood was just girls, money, and things like that. Do you know what I'm saying? And obviously, a lot of the guys got money illegally. So I was thinking, okay, so in order to be a man in my society, I have to do this. How many girls do you have? Losing your virginity in the end was like a medal. You get a medal for that. Do you know what I'm saying? You get applauded for that kind of thing. Thankfully, becoming a Christian completely eradicated all of that mindset of what it meant to actually be a man. And servitude was a huge thing for me, especially being a married man, being able to serve people, serve your wife. That makes me feel like more of a man. Do you know what I'm saying? Being able to provide for my family, but most importantly, serving my family. So I think in the other sense where it's like you have to be bigged up, or you got to be the strongest guy in the ends, or you got to be the most violent guy in the ends and all that stuff. Becoming a believer, it's actually twisted round. It's the most humble guy, or the guy that's meek in spirit, or that's, do you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what makes a man. So it's proper contrast.
Is there any distinctions because you guys are black, and like in terms of that affecting your view of like manhood potentially?
I feel like that pressure comes from the places like the workplace. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but as a black men and women have their experiences already in the workplace. So a black man is seen as, the one thing I think we can relate on is the whole aggression thing. Black man is always seen as being, don't talk too high, or you got to speak in a certain way, otherwise you're just stereotyped straight away. And a black woman in the workplace, if you try and even disagree with someone, you're seen as, oh, that's a bit aggressive, or
You're really loud.
Exactly. and I think we both have that challenge in the workplace as well. And I feel like as a black man, because I didn't grow up in a society where it's just a bunch of white, I grew up around black people, so I didn't experience racism as much until I stepped out the ends. But I think in the workplace is where I saw it more.
I think it's interesting actually. One thing I've been challenged with more, I don't think it's definitely not to do with race, but just like stereotypical male interests, like sports, a perfect example. And I love sport. I can go to anyone and say, if we find out, what team you support, and we can have a full conversation, might even be a whole friendship based on the fact that we support the same team, or we both like basketball, right? And I think I've been more challenged, especially being in Christian circles or being in part of churches where not every guy loves sport, and I still need to have a relationship with that person. That guy might not have the same stereotypical interest that I do, or I think, all men love sport, or sport is the only example that's coming to my head, but it's just the easiest one. But and I need to know that not all men look like this. Not all men, just because they're men, like sport or like this or want to talk about that. And having tried to I've definitely had to try and adjust what I think men have to, not intentionally, but knowing that despite, because what I could have done, like what I had done my whole life, whether it be uni, school, work, is I just draw to the type of men that share the same interests as me, and not ignore the rest, but like have less deeper relationship with the rest. Whereas as a Christian, you're encouraged to every man and woman is my brother and sister. And if that person is my brother, despite the fact that we have different interests, or they don't have the stereotypical male interest, I need to form a relationship with that person. I need to understand that man is just as man as I am. And despite the fact that he's not interested in what he is. So that's kind of shaped a little bit. And you can even bring race in that to it as well. I do not, till now, have a lot of non-black friends. But again, church, Basildon might change that, it's true. But that's kind of forced me to think, actually, it's not just this type of guy that I need to be. I need to be able to be open, be able to be, people who are different. So, I think, and it's a beautiful thing, because I've definitely formed relationships with other men that I never would have if I wasn't in that environment. So thank God for it.
It's funny though, because growing up for me, I always felt like I grew up in East London, and all day. There was always this kind of pressure for me to change the narrative. It was a subconscious pressure that I had because of maybe the school I went to, not all of the black boys were high achieving black boys. So I was looked at the guy that had to do something, if not from my parents, then from teachers or whatever. And I think I've kind of subconsciously taken that on throughout my life. So whenever I meet people who aren't black, there's a small part of me that wants to show them that I'm not like other guys that you may have encountered growing up or whatever. And that's something I'm trying to deal with, because obviously not all black people are like, you know, the way that people like to portray, black people have been portrayed throughout the last few decades. But that's something that I've realised is a subconscious thing that I've had to battle. As soon as you meet someone, like Femi said, you know, the church we go to it's growing in diversity, let's say. But you might meet someone for the first time, and you might want to show them, I am cool, you know, you can chat to me. We do have some things in common that we can talk about. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just, I guess it's, from being black, that's kind of subconscious.
So what's really funny, I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna bait the person out. I think Luke, was he there? You're gonna. I'll know if you're there. But
Was that Tom? Was that Tom?
I'm not saying any names, but in church, so like Louis said, the church we go to is becoming more diverse, but it's still majority white, which I think I've said on the podcast before. I remember one time in service, like someone's phone went off, and it was like a hip hop song or something like that. Was he there, Louis? And it was, I can't remember what song it was. I couldn't tell you. It was like a hip hop song or whatever. Yeah, and one of the members of the church came up to us afterwards and said, "Oh, was that your?
Was that your phone?
Was that your phone that I was playing?"
Yeah.
And it's funny because the way I responded was like, "Oh, like no, obviously no, but like, was it yours?" No, I didn't even say that. I was like, "Oh, was it yours? I know you like blah blah blah." Yeah. The thing is, yeah, kind of going back on what Louis said, yeah, a part of me, it could have been my phone. I like hip hop music, so it could have been. But who are you to tell me? Like, I'd rather just say no, I don't like hip hop. I don't like rap. Even though I know I do.
The person said, "Was it your gangster rap?"
That's exactly what he said.
We were just like a little bit like.
That's a microaggression.
I was gonna ask you guys, the men, how has it been in Christianity or the church setting? How has it been for you guys? Because unfortunately, the conversation of race, black men, continues in the church as well. So how has it been for you guys?
Yeah, that's a part of it. It's so interesting. Me and Louis have had these conversations before, but like, it's so interesting being in a majority white church, because let's take that example. A part of me knows that the person that did that wasn't trying to be offensive, right? Or wasn't trying to give off a microaggression or anything like that. So a part of me wants to be gracious, right, and say, I know he didn't mean anything by it. Like, he's a nice guy. Like, he didn't mean anything by it. There's been a couple of other incidents where, you know, things have happened where it's just like questionable. And as a Christian, you want to be gracious. You want to be like, oh no, you know, they didn't mean nothing, but they've got a good heart. You know, they're ignorant. A lot of the people in our church. I don't even mean ignorant as in bad. I mean as in they generally haven't been around. A lot of the people in our church specifically are not from London. They're like the non-blacks are not from London as well. So they've commuted to London. Commuted, that's not the word. But you know what I mean. Come to London, and they haven't been around a lot of people like that. So I try to show grace, but at the same time, a part of me, the black part of me, says no. Like, should we as black people as a black man, should I take that? Should I just be like, oh, it's okay, and then that person never learns. And that's happened a couple. Now I'm talking about it, it's happened a couple times, and Louis definitely knows. Like, it's happened a couple times where it's like, I could be the person to be like, actually, no, that wasn't right. Like, what do you think, kind of thing.
You know why I think you should be able to challenge that? Because I think in that kind of setting, when they see you, they don't see Femi the Christian, unfortunately. And it could be the ignorance, but they see Femi the black man. Do you get what I'm saying?
Unfortunately, yeah.
And why you have to challenge that is because you have to let people know we're in a faith-based setting. See me as a believer. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm in church with you, unless we don't know each other, but see me as a believer, and then we can have a conversation
100%.
deeper than after. Do you know what I'm saying? So if I don't know how I would react to if someone says to me, "Is that your gangster rap?" You know, honestly.
That's just one. That's just one scenario.
These times I don't listen to rap. These times he's got a mixtape. I don't even listen to rap.
It's like, listen to the UB40. Honestly,
But we need to
you
be
know?
able to be open to have these conversations in church. So
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Sure.
you,
For sure.
unfortunately, I worked for a Christian organization, and there was a lot of white people there, and there was a lot of situations and conversations around just people's ignorance. And sometimes you realize, wow, like some people are generally just completely ignorant,
Yeah.
but there's some people that actually, Christian or not, are probably still battling with racism.
I think you're completely right, and I think we should probably challenge more. But I want to be able to do it with grace. I don't know how to at this point. So because I don't know how to do it with grace, I just avoid it.
Conversations, bro.
Yeah.
Conversations. It may mean, let's go for a coffee, or come round my house, and conversation starts. Whereas if you want to not draw them out, but if you want to have a conversation about something that's been said, oh, bro, I want to know, like, what did you mean when you said that? Or how comes what's made you think that about me or us or black people? Or, most times people are just on the fence when you challenge them about things like that. But open dialogue and conversation is very important for them to know your side of things, but for you to also understand, so you just kind of know how to navigate things from there. It's not, I think we need to have them conversations in church. I remember when the whole George Floyd situation happened, and then the pastor of Hillsong said, that's an American issue, we don't need to discuss that. And it's like, no, it's a world and a sin issue, and racism is sin, and we have to discuss that.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it's a sin issue, then the church and the gospel challenges that, and Jesus challenges sin, or Jesus has overcome sin. We need to discuss that in the church. We can't run away from that conversation and hide behind Jesus or hide behind the church walls and say that's a them thing, it's not us. If it affects someone for seeing their brother or sister or whoever being killed on their phone, and it's made you feel a way, for you to say that's a them thing, you're completely dismissing the conversation. And I think we need to stop dismissing the conversation of race or black men or black women and how we're being treated in the church.
And I think part of the, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like the antithesis. The antithesis, is that the right word? I don't know. But anyway, the reverse aspects of like manhood is abdication, and if we abdicate those conversations, we're abdicating responsibility for something which is in some senses harming the church, or harming just the world in general. By the way, Crossway is a good church.
Yeah, Crossway's
check us out.
These guys have heard me pick up Crossway bare time, so you should know I love my church.
Funny.
I didn't want to wait to the end to plug us, but yeah.
I know a few people there. It's good.
It's a great church.
There we go.
It's a great church.
How do you guys?
It's a great church full of sinners saved by grace.
Crossway's trash. You get it. Men are trash. Sorry. How do you guys like thinking about toxic masculinity? So how do you guys respond to like the idea that men can't be sensitive, or men have to be alpha males, or men have to be hustlers, or all the general kind of strong male stereotypes that society and often the church, black people can push onto men?
Yeah, I was going to speak on that because I think there are loads of those toxic masculine traits that are put out there and encouraged. But I also think the exact reverse is happening in 23 in terms of showing, because even going back to that same conversation we were just having about how to respond to things like that happen in church or whatever. I think now, especially because we're black men, I think Ali spoke to it a bit, the temptation when someone makes a microaggression is, I want to make sure I seem as harmless as possible. So I don't want to be confrontational because I'm a black man, tall, I'm tall, I'm big. I want to try and make myself seem as harmless as possible. So I don't want to be confrontational because otherwise I might fit into all these stereotypes. And Ali talks about that in work, but it can also happen in the church. But linking to your question, Mary, I think those traits are bad, like misogyny, over masculine, like I'm having to exaggerate and masculine, say, the ability to not be sensitive and not to be in touch with your emotions. As men, we shouldn't be like that. We should be able to be sensitive when necessary. We should be able to be in touch with our emotions. All those things, that's all good. But I think, kind of what I was saying at the beginning, I think the reason why men struggle so much with identity is because we're told either be hyper masculine, otherwise you're not an alpha male, or don't do any of that, otherwise you're a toxic male or you're trash. And
where's the balance?
Finding the balance is quite difficult. So yeah, I think it is super difficult because where's the line? Like where, and that's what you get, right? You get a lot of time you get extremes. You get guys that don't show any emotion, or you guys, I don't want to say guys that show too much. That sounds bad, doesn't it? But maybe less control over their emotion. And I think trying to find a way to word this, but I think there are, I believe anyway, that there are ways that men and women are different when it comes to emotion, that as much as we should be in touch and we should be sensitive, we also have a responsibility to have a certain control. This might sound mad and people might disagree, but a certain control over our emotions where we're not letting our emotions lead our decision. So it's not the fact that we don't feel emotion or we don't feel sensitive to certain things, but I also think we have a responsibility to control those emotions where it doesn't lead us.
Yeah, I mean, emotional regulation.
Yeah, I guess that's a good word. But that could look toxic to a certain demographic. So why are you not feeling it this way? Why are you not crying in this way? Why are you not doing it? When I don't think that's what. In every case, I don't think that's what we're supposed to do. So I think long story short, I think the difficulty is finding that balance. You got one side saying that we need to be toxic, and you got one side that we shouldn't be masculine at all. And any kind of show of masculinity is toxic. Like, because what is toxic masculinity? Is this anything at this point? like, say, being the leader of the household, to many people, if I said to a lot of people in 2023, I am the leader of my household, I am trash.
I don't think people would deem that toxic, though.
Maybe not toxic, but definitely, patriarchal.
They might say being domineering.
So if I said in 2023, again, I'm talking to a non-Christian audience, let's say, if I say, in my household, I am the leader, my wife submits to me.
Not just non-Christians, bro.
It's true. You're absolutely right. If I tweeted that today, you're telling me.
I think of course there will be pockets that would
I don't know if it's pockets anymore. And I think Ali's right. I don't even think it's just outside of non-Christians.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. That's what I'm saying.
Outside with Femi, no. I think. Yeah, it's everywhere now.
So you'll be deemed toxic if you in the church, guys.
Toxic's a big word, but some people will definitely challenge that.
Oh no, for sure. I definitely agree. I think we were speaking about that in the last episode. Definitely agree, because I think headship submission is always going to be quite a difficult or kind of a hard thing to kind of unpack. But I think toxic masculinity is usually kind of the exaggeration of what it means to be a man.
But I think that's what it once was. I think in 2023, like I was saying right at the beginning, I think the lines have been blurred. And again, the barometer of what is trash or what is toxic has just changed, or the bar has just widened in terms of what it. That leaves men again with a hard position, because you don't just by virtue of you being shown any kind of masculinity or any kind of manhood can not every case, but can look toxic. So.
Yeah. I even remember when I think Jonathan Majors, this was before Creed came out earlier this year, he posted he had he was on a cover of a magazine in America, and I don't remember what he was wearing. He was dressed quite flamboyantly, and people thought wow, this whole feminization of black men is growing, where it feels like to counteract men or black men being seen as masculine, they now have to be soft and docile and
exactly.
And I think, do you think that's creeping into the church? I know there's been conversations around why aren't there more women than men in church, and some people suggest that it's because Christianity is feminized, so to speak. What do you guys think about that? Why are you smiling?
I've got strong thoughts on it. That's why.
Because
I want to hear your thoughts.
I want to hear it too. Just really quickly, I was just going to say that the whole idea of Christianity being feminized. If someone asked me that question or said that to me, the first thing I'm thinking of is going to a church where you're singing a worship song about Jesus, who is this Mediterranean guy coming out of the water like a Baywatch scene, coming to save me. Those kind of worship songs. So when I think of Christianity being feminized, that's what I think of. I know there's some people that think of more women than men in church, women preaching. Obviously, we won't get into that too tough, but
we can get into that.
Or it could be some things like women, male singing, which is some people think only women do, or worship being quite emotive. It appeals to women in ways that it doesn't appeal to men.
Yeah. Or like building more programs that are tailored towards women in the church as well.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Some people say the lack of discipleship in a lot of churches, so that it feels like there's a lot of things for women to do, but not much agency in men. So I don't know. What do you guys think about all of that?
Interesting.
I think in most places there's more women than men. In general, not just the church. When it comes to the church aspect, women are always the ones who are up for serving or up for taking, certain positions, or there's just always like an excitement. And I feel like God's really blessed women in that kind of aspect of women wanting to serve. And I don't mean in a sense where anyone could try and flip it, but women are generally have servant hearts. And I feel like if men also see that in themselves or in other men, it could draw men to, to come to church. And I feel like there's great examples in all of our churches that we go through. I know you guys' church as well. There's great examples of men there that could lead other men to be like, yes, like, let's do this together kind of thing. Even the church I go to, I'll look at a lot of my leaders and I'm like, I appreciate this man that I can, just sit under his teaching and just listen and follow his example and get advice of him. But I think in general, it's always just more women than men. It's frustrating because women will go to a church and you'll say, you'll talk to a woman and she'll say, there's no brothers in church, or there's no men in my church. And sometimes they will even end up leaving some churches because there's no potentials there. But this always seems to be a huge issue in the church.
So do you think Christianity is feminized or can be feminized in certain contexts?
I think when we look at who Jesus is, I think what Louis was saying in regards to the whole Jesus is my, kind of,
boyfriend.
The whole Jesus is my boyfriend aspect
Valentine
can feminize it, where we don't see him as sovereign, strong, someone that didn't care, like in regards to like he was ruthless against religious people, against Pharisees, against the scribes and those who seemed to be like they were religious. Jesus was a bad man, bro. He was a G. Flipped tables, he had authority, and sometimes other religions could play an aspect in it where we see Muslims as they are the authoritative one because their rules on the kind of men-women thing could be different. So you'll go to prison and you'll see that a huge percentage of people that go there end up converting to Islam than they do Christianity. Because it's seen as the more male-domineering religion where, again, and this is what I was saying before, sometimes servitude is seen as weak. And for men to serve is seen as a weak thing. So if you're seen as weak and someone who's striving to be humble or turning the other cheek or things like that, it's being seen as weak. And unfortunately, that strips the quote-unquote manhood from the man in the church. And if they see the man in the church like that, a lot of people will see the Jesus of Christianity like that.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned Islam because Andrew Tate, who we were talking about at the beginning, is now pushing Islam, or he's a Muslim, and not pushing Islam, but he's definitely vocal about the fact that he's now a Muslim, and he's spoken about why he doesn't respect Christianity. He used to be a Christian loosely. I don't know if he was a real Christian, but he at least say he was, and now he's a Muslim. There's a couple other guys as well in that same community that have now gone over to Islam for the same reasons that Ali said. Do I think Christianity has been feminized? Definitely not in. I don't even think it's been intentional in a lot of cases. So the first thing I would say is I think, number one, there's more women than men in church, and that is not women's fault. That's not their problem.
We just love God.
Exactly. Exactly. Or it could just be because there's more women, whatever it is, and that's not their fault. Also, I think Ali made a really, really good point. There are aspects of Christianity that, from a worldly sense, doesn't look like the world representation of what a man should be. So like servitude and stuff like that, or even like worship to something that might not look manly. So those acts of worship might not look manly.
Authority.
Yes, respecting authority might not look manly. Submission, so even submission to like elders or whatever, might not look manly to a lot. And that's not Christianity being feminized. That's just what Jesus was. Jesus was someone that would serve, like Ali was saying, like Louis was saying, and that's an example, and that is a perfect example of what a man should be, even if the world doesn't see that.
It might be added to the ick list.
It's true, innit? What's another
men who worship.
Why are you on your knees, man?
Why are you singing?
Why are you on your knees, man?
That man don't sing. Why are you singing for? Are you harmonizing?
But saying all of that, so that's where it's not Christianity's fault why the world may have viewed it as more feminine than masculine. But there are aspects where what I think happens, and I experience it, and the reason why I'm, I guess, not passionate about it, but it's something I've experienced where there are aspects, and maybe because there are more women than men in church, where churches seem to cater to that. So as opposed to preaching a message or delivering a service that is just for Christians, you can almost tell that there is, and they might not even know it, but because they used to just being women, like more women as people serving, more women in the congregation, more women in leadership, naturally, again, not really a fault of their own, it's going to cater to more to that side. And you can see certain things that are done that definitely would lean on that kind of feminine scale. I think worship's a great example. And it's not,
because there's no drums or what?
no, so for me...
Don't take me seriously.
For me with worship specifically, it's not even the fact that there is some worship songs that are clearly romanticizing Jesus in a way that I don't think women or men need to be doing as we do. So there is that, and styles of worship as well may lean more towards a more emotive, more feminine way of worshiping God, which I haven't got a super, super big problem with. But what can happen, and what I experienced being in a church where, in my opinion, it was more catered that way, is as men, you either don't feel comfortable in that setting or don't know how to express your ways of worshiping, and you either leave or you're just not comfortable doing it, or you alter how you worship to fit in with everyone else, because that's what I did. There's certain things when I was in certain churches that I would do that I know I didn't have a natural feeling to do. And that wasn't bad. But at the time, I didn't know it was bad. Like, if you weren't like super emotional when you were singing worship, you probably look like you're not really worshipping God. So you either get with the program, or you feel super uncomfortable. You end up leaving. And that was literally my experience. And it took a while for me to be like, oh, actually, I don't need to be super emotional. I might be. Yeah. There might be certain things that might make me emotional, but I don't need to be to show that I'm worshiping God. Or I don't need to cry because there's a super like really heart-wrenching. So I don't need to. Even though everyone else is doing it, I don't need to. If I call to do that, if I feel to do that, I might, but I don't need to. And I don't know if churches are aware that is what is being pushed. And I don't know how those churches that push it like that are aware of how that affects some men. I've spoken to men that went to churches that I went to that just didn't feel comfortable. And for a variety of reasons, I've looked elsewhere, just left church and talked in favour. And I think churches should bear that in mind. Now, I'm not saying that, churches should act a certain way to make sure men come to their church. No, not specifically. But just be more aware of the environment you've created, and make sure you're not catering it to just one demographic, and just be aware of it, because I speak to men all the time. Last thing I'll say on this, men are attracted, men are attracted by other men in church, I think. So hear me out.
Oh no, that's I get it.
Hear me out. So I remember I used to go to a Bible study where it's the only church experience in my life where there was more men than girls. And it was a mixed Bible study. And what I noticed when I spoke to other guys is when guys came to this Bible study and saw there were other guys, they felt automatically way more comfortable. Or they felt like, oh, rah, like, because there's still a thought or feeling towards church with a lot of men that's like, this is for women, or this is something my mum used to drag me. My mum used to drag me to church, or my auntie used to drag, my grandma used to drag me to church, or my wife or my girlfriend drags me to church. It's still a very like, there's a perception of church that is very, very feminine. And I do think churches, again, not cater to the fact that is the case, but just be aware of it. That was really long-winded, but those are all my thoughts. Those are all my thoughts on.
I love how you touched on men seeing men, because a lot of times men are not there because there's no other men.
Yeah.
And
It's a cycle, isn't it?
going to church and seeing male leadership or men that still love the Lord, because we're in 2023, it's not the same as it was 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
People are leaving the faith left, right and centre. So going somewhere where you're seeing sound teaching, you're seeing men serving other people, serving in church, and you're seeing men still loving the Lord and being men, it's rare.
Yeah.
So seeing that is such a blessing, it's so refreshing, and it's very encouraging. You know what I'm saying? I was going to say that as well, and men, stop calling your pastors daddy.
You spent that last
this
time.
one.
That one is...
Men and women.
I will always touch on that.
Not just men. Not just men. Yeah, no one
should be calling you pastor
Just
daddy.
kill me.
Absolutely
Don't kill
no
me.
No one.
Just kill me.
Especially, but nah, I have to say this right now. Camera, is this camera on me? If you're a man and you call your chick, just think about it. Just I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying stop straight away. Just think about
I'm saying stop.
It's a process. They're just in the same by grace.
Stop, bro. You're so silly. It's interesting because I remember listening to. When I first became a Christian, I used to listen to Mark Driscoll a lot.
Hey, man,
And he had this whole big picture idea of get men into the church, you get their wives, their girlfriends, you get the community, and you just build from there. So he had a lot of army, strong language appealing to men. And I think for the time it worked. And it just made me think of how important is discipleship for men. Because I think when I speak to people, they're always just like, oh, I'm in church, but I don't have anyone to talk to, or there's not enough guys, or there's no one to talk, I don't have many male figures around and stuff like that. And I feel like when I think of discipleship and that word, I always think of men first. How important do you guys think discipleship is for men in the church?
I remember seeing an interview by the Perrys, Jackie and what's the husband's name?
Preston.
Preston said he went to a conference or an event, and some guy came basically crying to him for discipleship.
I think I see this. Yeah.
I was like, where are the men? Where don't you have any men around you? It's like, I've gone to several and I just haven't had that. Men are crying for discipleship.
Yeah, 100%.
Men need discipleship from other men. And then it comes to, what does discipleship look like? Discipleship doesn't mean let's go for a coffee. Discipleship can mean come to my house and see how I live with my family. And we can have a talk from there, just seeing how day-to-day things are. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think we don't see the importance of people seeing how you live behind the doors of church. Come to our home, come and eat. Just fellowship has a lot to do with discipleship. And we rarely see that anymore, man. COVID's come, everyone's in their corner, everyone wants to go home after church, and little things like that add to what discipleship is. And I think we don't have that.
Yeah, I think in any area of life, if I wanted to become a footballer, I'd look at another footballer, see how they train, get some nuggets of wisdom here and there. Any aspects of life that you want to get into, you're going to find someone who's experienced in that field, or someone who knows a little bit about that field. Why would you not want to do that in a Christian life? And I think you're right in saying that, we're crying out for discipleship. I don't know if that crying out is actually literal. As in, I don't know if people are actually asking.
Proactive.
Yeah.
But it's what we want and need.
It's what we want and
but
need.
But a lot of us won't say it.
We won't say it, but also not a lot of us are seeking out men to disciple. Because that's why I struggled with the earlier question about manhood. What was my view of it and my view now? Because I felt like I've never had a role model, and I've just been winging it my whole life. And you get to a point where you hit your 30s, and you're like, so who actually taught me how to be a man? I've just been looking at this person, and just going through life and informing things as I go, and thankfully became a Christian. And obviously Jesus became my kind of barometer for manhood. But in most cases, most of us would say that we've never had, obviously maybe our dads or whatever, but even without that, even whilst having a dad, I'd never had a man sit us down and actually disciple us.
Yeah, I've never.
I just think, we're crying out for that, man. And even listening to this now is making me think, who can I be discipling?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, I think because we can sit. I've had this conversation with my guys a lot of the time actually, and like we can sit and I think we all sat down and said none of us have been like intentionally discipled like when we were younger, right? And you can sit and moan and say, but that God's grace is so like amazing that despite like Louis just said, even though he didn't have that, he still found Christianity. He still sees what it's been, man. Obviously, you're growing. We're all growing. We're all learning. That's never gonna stop, and we can still be discipled. Till now, until our older grade, we can still be discipled by someone else. But I think as guys now, we need to be more intentional about seeking out people to disciple. Like we can sit and say, "Oh yeah, I didn't get discipled. No one said that," but okay, that's cool, that's past. Now it's our opportunity to do that for the next generation. And we should, as men, we should be way more intentional about looking out for it. Yeah, sometimes you might want people to ask or seek it out, but also, like Ali said, like invite people over to your house or wherever it is, like, because you don't need to go and, you don't need to go find someone and say, oh, I'm going to disciple you. That's I don't think that's how it works. And a lot of people wouldn't respond. To be honest, in my 20s, if someone came up to me, especially in my 20s, if someone came up to me and said, I'm going to disciple you, I would have been airing messages. Like, I would have been blue ticks. Like, not even in like in a malicious way. It's just, I would have, I don't know. There's something about that doesn't feel that genuine, or it feels like you're trying to train me or teach. But no, just like relationship. That's all it is. It's just relationship. Showing a good example, seeing how, like Ali was saying, like seeing how you live my life, how you live your life. Showing that to another brother. That's a precious commodity that we shouldn't, as men, take for granted. And also, someone like me, and I'm preaching to myself, I need to be open to being discipled by people as well. I don't know if I probably wasn't discipled. Also partially because I don't know if I was open to it. Like I remember saying to someone like, you know how like people like go to their pastors for like advice and stuff like that, or call them, or something happens in their life, they call and pastor. I've never been like that ever. I've never called or texted my pastor for advice.
Let me say that I'm alpha.
I've had bare pastors in my life, you know. I've had a lot of pastors in my life. I've been in church my whole life. I've lived a decent amount of years. I've never called or texted my pastor. Oh, I need advice on something, and that's me. That's not all because my pastor. I mean, some cases because my pastors weren't accessible, but also I have to look at myself and say, oh, actually, how willing was I to like be humble and ask and know that that person might have had my best interest to want to guide me. So as much as I want to disciple other people, as men, we need to be open to being discipled. It's not just about people being there to disciple us.
Did you ask your boys when you needed advice?
Yeah, I asked my boys. Yeah. Okay. But I won't call that discipleship. I get it.
I'm making a distinction.
Yeah, I would ask my boys. Yeah,
someone told me there's always like there should be like a kind of freeway thing of, not freeway, but there should be someone discipling you and also you discipling someone to just keep that cycle going.
I always think of like, so I always say I'm worried for the future generation. I'll see something on social media. I saw something last week where I think there was a kind of TikTok organised looting of a shop in Oxford Circus. I don't know if you guys saw it, but basically a group of young people, about 30 to 40,
I did see that,
18-year-olds, they just stormed the shop in Oxford Circus. And I was sitting there thinking, nah, this younger generation are washed. Like, I'm scared of it. They're tapped, literally. But then I can't, again, preaching to myself, same as you said, I can't just talk about how worried I am for the younger generation and not think about the people that I know who are of the same ilk, same age, and not think what wisdom can I be dropping, to them, or in what ways, like you said, can I invite them to my house? Can I sit them down? Can I just ask them, okay, cool, so what's going on? Like, that kind of thing. So yeah, I just think it's easy to say younger generation are in trouble, social media, this and this, we never had that growing up. But now it's like, actually, wait, like, we're here now saying all these things, what can we be sharing? You know what I mean?
You guys have got me wanting to put on Bashy Black Boys, man.
That's top 3 UK hip hop tunes.
Literally, it's so sweet.
It's actually a classic. Shout out Bashy.
So all of you guys are married, yeah. How does manhood play in your marriage?
That's a whole new podcast.
That's a great question. How much time we got?
That's a whole new podcast.
I've always thought about this, so
Yeah. Ali?
Whenever you guys
you're
ready.
You're the vet in the room, boy. You've been married.
Who's been married the longest? Who's been married the longest? I've been married 8 years. I think I
6 years.
6 years.
Almost,
3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah.
Almost 3.
Almost 3. Oh yeah. No, you guys should. Cause you guys should go first. He's the OG.
Yeah.
So you can
No, I'm far from an OG, bro. 6 years comes like that. And
wow.
you realise that, wow, like, people saying 25, 30 years and it actually just goes so quickly.
When you're in love, it is like a blink of an eye.
All our guys were men.
Don't laugh.
let's not get
Even
soft.
I was testing y'all.
But what was the question? What has manhood taught me about? What has marriage taught me about manhood?
Yeah.
Jeez, so much. I think I don't know if it's specific to manhood, but it might be just like I didn't know how prideful I was until I got married.
Yeah.
I didn't know, man. Like I probably knew I was a little bit prideful, but I wouldn't even describe myself as a prideful person before I got married. But as soon as I got married, I was like, oh snap. Like, I'm proper prideful, and there's been so many times. Don't know if I look at it as like, oh, it's because I'm a man, but there's been so many times I've had to like check myself, and yeah, part of it is just like wanting to be a good leader of the household and say, actually, let go of your pride. The better thing to do now in this situation for our marriage, for our household, is to let go of pride, to be humble, to be servant-hearted, like Ali was talking about earlier. I put my not put my desires, but put my heart, my fleshy desires to the side at least, for the benefit of our household. And that's been a journey, a difficult journey. It's obviously I'm only 3 years in, so I'm sure I'm going to continue to learn more. But yeah, I think that's what it's been. I'd love to hear what you guys will say though.
Yeah, I think agree. By the way, 100%. Marriage will test your pride. And marriage will expose your pride. But I think for me, I've lived for, let's say, 29 years making my own decisions for myself. And, you know, if anything goes wrong, it all falls on me, right? To now being married and having to think about someone else and the implications of my decisions. And if I make the wrong choice, again, you know, that could
100%.
Negatively on her. So I think for me, it's been just how much I need God in my decision making, whether it's the small day-to-day things or the you know, just the big things in general. I just didn't realize it'd be hard, you know. That marriage itself has been great, but in terms of life and the decision making behind all of it, I'd say there's times when I have to. I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm a little bit paralyzed in my decision making because I don't want to make the wrong choice because now it's not just me; it's going to impact it's someone else. You see what I mean? You see what I'm saying? So for me, that's been a challenge. But otherwise, the reminder's there that, you know, as a man, I'm always second in command, even in marriage, even as a leader. I'm second in command. I'm thinking about I think it's Isaiah 6 where Uzziah sees the Lord, and then God says, who's going to go? And his first thing is, here I am, send me. And it's like, what voice do I have? I can't remember the full scripture, but it's like, what voice, what word do you have for me? You know. So it's like I'm always second in command, and there's always something I need to do. So there's a mandate that God has given me, and it's a God honoring mandate. So it's not just for me; it's also whatever God has given me, I have to do because I'm going to answer to God. And I think that's what's kind of impacting my decision making in some way, shape, or form. It's been challenging, definitely.
Ali, you're a father too, so I don't know if that has any.
Yeah, no, I think being a father does add to it, but I think firstly, I think the whole aspect of manhood being the hard one, or being the you know, having to show a type of masculinity and this strong exterior, a lot of that is either challenged when you're married, but also a lot of it is refined when you're married, because I can be someone who cries on my wife's shoulder, and that's okay, and I'm not seen as, you know what I'm saying, this man's giving me the ick. Another thing to the list. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Crying.
Yeah.
You might have 10 bucks.
You know what I'm saying? But I can also show my weakness. So marriage is, there's nothing hidden in marriage. So my upbringing, my relationship with my parents from young, all of that comes out in marriage, because it's like, this is how I've been raised. These are the habits I've had all up until marriage. And the wrong habits will come out in marriage. Do you know what I'm saying? So we've had discussions on pornography in our marriage, and we've had to tackle, where did this come from? That's why we always tell people, me and my wife, go for therapy. Whether it's solo or couples therapy, go for therapy, because you really get to see what is inside. Some things are hidden inside for time, and it's just some things there's always similar patterns or things that are bothering you in your marriage, or That's just what is happening. When therapy brings that out, it's like, oh, okay, I understand. This happened when I was young. That's affected me throughout my whole life. That's why the same pattern's been happening. And now it's affected me in my marriage and all of that kind of stuff. So conversations like that are very important to have. And I feel like marriage was the best thing that happened to me in regards to, for me to become the man I am today. I'm obviously still not perfect. I have a long way to go in regards to growing, but thankfully through marriage, it's a sanctification. I believe it's one of the biggest ways in the way God can sanctify you is when there's another person in the house and you know that there's sometimes could be a huge clash, but that clash God can use that in order to open up a person and say, right, this is what happened. I saw my parents doing this and it affected me in this way, but I'm not going to continue to allow that to destroy my marriage. So there's things that I literally need to let go. It's a pruning process. It's one of the ways God can prune. It's not the only way, because not everyone is called to be married. Not everyone will get married, and you don't have to be married for God to prune you. No. But it is a strong way of God just pruning you and bringing these things out, and just seeing God's glory in that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Can I ask a question just to back off that? Because it's something I thought about, right? I'll start off clarifying it by saying not everyone is going to be married. Not everyone's cool to be married. Some people are, going to be single for the rest of their life. But for those that need to reject it. But because of what Ali was saying, specifically to men, it prunes men and women, but it prunes men in a way that. So not that you can't be pruned without, like Ali just said, without marriage, of course you can, but there's a specific sanctification, like you were saying, and pruning that happens when you are married. Knowing that, do you think single men that have the ability to get married, I could phrase that so much better, but the ability to get married should actively desire it, and if they don't, would you question it? So it's more the question, because especially at a certain age, like there's some people that I would say, or I saw a guy that's eligible in whatever way you want to describe eligible, but he's enjoying his singleness, and you can do that for a bit, but at some point, do you, as Christian men, do you say to your brother, like, bro, like, is this like, I'm saying it for that, I'm not even trying, because I know there's many single guys that are trying and they just, for whatever reason, they haven't met the right person and blah, 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 blah. So I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the guys that you know that they're not trying. Like, they're not even, I don't know if it's commitment issues or attachment. I don't know what it is, but they're not there. Do you, because I've been in a position as a friend that's gone to my friends and said, oh, like, bro, that was good, like, like, what, is this something, like, is everything okay, like, do that, and I think the reason why I asked that, I know it's a bit of a long-winded question, but the reason I asked is because sometimes I'm not convicted, but I'm like, oh, no, maybe I shouldn't, like, maybe some people are just supposed to be single, and that's calm, and in many ways it is, right, but because of what you were saying about what the beauty of marriage, and the benefits to it, am I right to go to my bro and say, like, bro, like, come on, man, or should I just leave him to do? Should I leave him to do?
There are certain guys that need to put the Xbox down after a while.
Xbox.
Say, you know what?
I said
Xbox, not even PS5. But yeah, there's certain guys that at some point need to put the PS5 down and get up and get out. And there's women out there. I was going to say earlier that I last heard this about 5-6 years ago, but the ratio apparently in the church for women to men is about 7 to 1.
That's crazy.
It's probably grown since then, by the way. That was about 5 years ago. But apparently, church at large, 7 to 1.
That's so bad.
And it's not because the men aren't around; they're around. They're just, a lot of them are sitting at home.
Yeah.
So I think also knowing is that what a man wants? Even the same as is that what a woman wants? Because I think women get 10 times worse than men, which is very frustrating. And sometimes upsetting to see as a brother. You know, women will get to their 29, it's like, oh, time is getting on now. What's going on with your husband? Like, they get to choose, like, oh, okay, auntie, let me just go and ask my man to marry me. And it doesn't work like that. But also, with men, marriage is not the be-all and end-all. It's not the last final destination that we reach as Christians and we're like, I've made it, I've defeated the final boss.
No, I agree with that, but I think that can also be an excuse to not get married.
Agreed.
And my thing is, because I agree, I fully hear that. It's not the be and end all. It's not what makes you a Christian. It's not none of those things. I understand that. I more just question when a man actively says he's not thinking, like, to an space of time, and if he's interested, so obviously there's other things, like maybe they have, sexuality things and stuff like that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about more just like, I'm not looking at it, like I'm more focused on career, because I've heard it. I'm focused on career. I want to get my house first. I want to do this first. And a part of me is like, yeah, that's cool. Go for it, bro. Like, do your thing. And a part of me is like, as Christian men, shouldn't marriage be on part? Like, if that's what you're in, like you're into women or whatever, isn't that something that should be on? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm literally just throwing it out there. Like, is it acceptable for a guy, a Christian man, that is interested in the opposite sex? I do have to clarify that. But yeah, that's interested in opposite sex, to just be like, no, I'm just focusing on career, I'm just focused on getting money for like you're 35, 40 and you're still saying that.
I think with that, you have to look at, like, one thing I would look at is you're 35, you're 40, you've got your career. There is no way, as a man, you're not thinking about women.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And I think not just to say get married because you might be burning, but why wouldn't you want to take that next step in your life where you know what I'm saying, instead of just dating around or possibly women coming to your house and you've got your life set out, it would be great to take that step as well. But sometimes it's only advice you can give someone, and you can't bring them to. You can only bring to the whole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's a decision they have to make. But you can only encourage them as a friend. Because as I said, some women get it 10 times worse than we do.
100%.
We have time. So, any concluding thoughts for the Mandem?
Just to say, that's very refreshing to hear, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not even like capping just because it's BB. Like, I've got good brothers around me. Got some bad brothers. I avoid them. But for the most part, I've got some good brothers around me. Shout out the good ones, man. Shout out the good ones. But yeah, what are your thoughts, like concluding thoughts for the Mandem? Because anything that you think would be useful.
I would say, if you're
getting married if you're over 35.
No. Or maybe. But I would say a couple of things. So to the non-Christian brothers, find out more about, if you've got Christian friends, Christian family, find out more about Christianity. A lot of the perceptions of Christianity from men outside of the church may be completely wrong, or are completely wrong. So find out more, ask questions, talk to other Christian guys. There are Christian guys in church. Like, it isn't just women. It isn't just your mum and your auntie and your grandma. You do find men like you, same age, that are Christian. So find out more if you're not a Christian. If you're a Christian that isn't in the church, I would encourage you to join a church community and find other brothers in Christ. Again, like we spoke about, I won't labour the point too much. Fellowship, discipleship, learning what living as a Christian man looks like, by observation, by conversation, by relationship, by through fellowship. So yeah, if you're not part of a church or church community, seek out one. It's super important. And then for the Christian man that is in church, continue on your journey. Continue to put Christ at the centre, and be aware of the impact you can have on other Christian men and women and children. But you have super impact just by you being in a church as a Christian man, or not even just in a church, in a public sphere, on social media as a Christian man. You're not aware of the amount of responsibility you have. Embrace it. Embrace it. You might be the only Christian man some people ever see. So yeah, embrace it.
Amen. I would say servitude is not weakness, and men stop calling your pastor dad.
Every time I knew that was coming out.
I knew he was going to say that.
I knew he was going to say that.
That's my exit. I'm not going to lie. That needs to be a topic.
That is my whole topic.
That's very simple from my perspective. But I think I would say find an older man, or find a group of men who keep you on your toes, because that's always the best way to learn. Read as much as possible about Jesus, as much as you can. He is the perfect man. That's all I say. Yeah, just find a group of good men and read as much as you can about Jesus and seek to follow him, and you will grow as a man.
I would add, don't give up on the Mandem.
Don't give up on it.
Yeah,
man.
don't
give up on it, man.
We're not all trash. Most of
Yeah,
us.
step up.
But
take
we're
the lead.
just in the same
Still the same, man. Still the same, man.
We're trying.
We're wretched men.
Oh, guys, let us know what you think. If you have any questions, we do have upcoming OxBP episodes. So if there's anything male related, masculine related that you want to ask, definitely drop that in. But no, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's
Guys. Good safe space. Hope it was a safe space for you guys.
Definitely, man.
Definitely.
The fact that we allowed you guys to have podcast microphones and stuff.
Like we said, there's too many spaces out there, so yeah, just keep it saturated.
Keep it here.
Also, one last thing. Crossway is a great church.
Oh gosh, is it? From what I'm hearing, I'm not hearing there. I'm joking. I'm not.